There is a strange experiment that almost nobody is willing to try. Not because it is difficult, because it is revealing. For the next 30 days, stop chasing, stop explaining, stop making yourself available every time someone expects it. Stop checking who replied. Stop wondering who noticed your absence. Simply disappear, not to punish anyone, not to manipulate anyone, but to find out what remains. When your constant presence is no longer holding everything together. Most people are terrified of this idea because they secretly believe their value depends on being seen, being needed, being remembered, being included. So they stay constantly available, always answering, always checking in, always saying yes, always proving they care. And without realizing it, they slowly become predictable, not respected, expected. The silent strategist understands something most people never discover. Constant availability creates comfort. Scarcity creates awareness. Imagine walking into your favorite coffee shop every single morning for 5 years. The owner knows your name. The staff recognizes your order. Everything becomes routine. Now imagine the shop suddenly closes for a month. The first morning, you barely notice. By the third day, you begin thinking about it. By the second week, you realize how much it had become part of your life. Nothing about the coffee changed, only its availability. Human psychology works in remarkably similar ways. We rarely notice what is always present. But absence force attention. Not because absence is magical, because routine makes us blind. This is where many people misunderstand the lesson. They hear this idea and immediately think, so I should disappear to make people miss me. No, that is still dependence. Your focus remains on controlling someone else's emotions. The silent strategist disappears for a completely different reason. He disappears to hear his own thoughts again. Because modern life is incredibly loud. Notifications, messages, opinions, expectations, requests. Every single day, someone is asking for a piece of your attention. Little by little, your inner voice becomes impossible to hear. Then one day, you wake up living a life designed almost entirely by other people's expectations. You didn't choose it. You drifted into it. Years ago, a young musician visited an old composer whose work had inspired millions. The young man asked, "How do I become more creative?" The old composer smiled and asked a question instead. "When was the last time you spent an entire week without listening to anyone else's music?" The young musician couldn't answer. The composer nodded. "You cannot hear your own melody while everyone else's song is still echoing inside your head." That answer reaches far beyond music. Many men cannot hear who they truly are because they are constantly surrounded by noise. 30 days of intentional distance is not about escaping life. It is about removing enough noise to recognize your own direction again. Imagine standing beside a lake during a storm. The surface is violent. The water reflects nothing. Now imagine returning the next morning. The wind is gone. The water becomes perfectly still. Suddenly, the entire sky appears in its reflection. Your mind works exactly the same way. A restless mind reflects nothing clearly. A calm mind reveals everything. That is why solitude has always been respected by philosophers, warriors, monks, and great leaders throughout history. Not because they hated people, because they understood that clarity is rarely found inside constant distraction. Now ask yourself something honestly. How much of your day belongs to you? Not your employer, not your family, not your phone, not social media, not endless conversations. You. If that question makes you uncomfortable, you're not alone. Most people have forgotten what uninterrupted thought even feels like. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, one of the first transformations is learning to reclaim ownership of your attention. Because attention is life. Whatever controls your attention gradually shapes your identity. The moment you take that attention back, everything begins to change. If you're ready to build that kind of psychological independence, you'll find the complete framework waiting for you in the first pinned comment. The next question is even more interesting. What actually happens when you disappear? Not in your imagination, not in fantasy, in real life. The answer surprises almost everyone. Because the biggest change doesn't happen in other people first. It happens inside you. The first few days are always the hardest. Not because the world suddenly changes. Because your habits begin fighting back. Your hand reaches for your phone without thinking. You wonder who has texted. You check notifications that don't matter. You feel an almost invisible urge to explain your absence. To remind people that you still exist. To make sure you haven't been forgotten. This is the first lesson. You begin to realize how much of your life has been running on autopilot. Most people believe they control their attention, but attention is often controlling them. Imagine walking through a forest with a lantern at night. Wherever you point the light, that becomes your world. Everything outside the beam disappears. Attention works the same way. Whatever receives it begins to grow. Whatever is ignored slowly loses influence. For years, your attention may have been feeding the opinions of strangers. Old arguments. People who never truly appreciated you. Conversations that should have ended long ago. Dreams that belonged to someone else. Without realizing it, you were watering weeds while wondering why your own garden never flourished. The silent strategist changes the direction of the lantern. Instead of illuminating everyone else's expectations, he begins illuminating his own life. That simple shift changes everything. One morning becomes a workout instead of endless scrolling. An evening becomes reading instead of seeking validation. A quiet afternoon becomes planning instead of worrying. Little by little, the mind becomes less reactive, more intentional, and something unexpected begins to happen. The silence that once felt uncomfortable starts feeling peaceful. Years ago, an old monk was asked why he spent so much time alone. The visitor believed solitude must be lonely. The monk smiled and replied, "Loneliness is wanting company. Solitude is enjoying your own presence." Those words stayed with me because they reveal a distinction most people never notice. A man who cannot enjoy his own company will eventually tolerate the wrong company. Not because it is healthy, because it feels less frightening than being alone. That is why so many intelligent people remain trapped in relationships, friendships, and environments that quietly drain them. They are not afraid of losing others. They are afraid of meeting themselves. The silent strategist chooses differently. He understands that silence is not empty. Silence is revealing. When the noise disappears, you finally notice what has been living inside your mind. Sometimes it is peace. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is regret. Sometimes it is ambition that has been buried beneath years of distraction. Whatever appears, now you can finally deal with it. Imagine owning a beautiful house for decades. Every room is filled with clutter, boxes, old furniture, broken objects. One day you decide to remove everything that no longer belongs there. At first, the house looks strange, almost empty, but then something remarkable happens. You begin noticing how much space was always there. Your mind experiences the same transformation. For years, it has been storing unnecessary emotional furniture, resentment, comparison, approval-seeking, old conversations, imaginary arguments, constant guilt. Every one of them occupies space. Every one of them consumes energy. The 30 days become an opportunity to clear the rooms. Not perfectly, but intentionally. And as that inner space expands, so does your perspective. Problems that once felt enormous suddenly become manageable. People who once seemed impossible to disappoint lose much of their emotional control over you. Not because they changed, because your dependence on their approval began to disappear. That is one of the quiet miracles of solitude. It doesn't change the world around you. It changes the way you see it. Then something interesting starts happening. You stop feeling the need to answer immediately. You stop explaining every decision. You stop defending yourself against every misunderstanding. Not out of arrogance, but because you realize something profound. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. The strongest boundaries are often invisible. They are simply the decisions you quietly refuse to negotiate. The silent strategist understands that every yes carries a hidden cost. Time, energy, attention, Focus. Every unnecessary commitment steals resources from something more meaningful. That is why disciplined men protect their calendar as carefully as they protect their reputation, because both determine the direction of their future. Before we continue, think about one habit that has quietly stolen your attention over the last year. Maybe it is social media. Maybe it is seeking validation. Maybe it is checking your phone every few minutes. Maybe it is worrying about people who rarely think about you. Now, imagine recovering all of that attention. Imagine investing it into your health, your business, your purpose, your discipline. How different would your life look 1 year from now? Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, this is one of the first practical exercises. Not disappearing from the world forever, but learning how to disconnect from everything that constantly competes for your attention. Because a distracted man can never become a dangerous man. Only a focused one can. And that focus becomes almost impossible to break once it is built from within. The most surprising part of the 30-day experiment, however, has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with what other people begin to reveal once your constant presence is no longer available. Something fascinating begins to happen around the second or third week. Not inside you, around you. The world starts revealing itself without your help. People who only contacted you when they needed something become strangely quiet. Those who expected immediate replies suddenly become impatient. Some begin sending multiple messages. Others disappear completely. And a few reach out with genuine curiosity. Not because they need something, because they actually care. The 30 days become a filter. Not a punishment. Not a game. A filter. Imagine lowering the water level of a river. When the water disappears, the rocks that were always there finally become visible. Your constant availability works like that water. It hides people's true intentions. Remove it, and character begins to reveal itself. Some relationships become stronger. Others quietly fade away. Neither outcome is bad. Both are information. The silent strategist understands that information is one of the most valuable forms of power. Because once you see reality clearly, you stop making decisions based on illusion. Years ago, a wealthy merchant owned 2 orchards. Every summer they looked identical. Healthy, green, beautiful. 1 year, a severe drought struck the region. Months passed without rain. When the season ended, one orchard remained alive. The other was almost completely dead. People asked the merchant what had happened. He smiled and answered, "The drought didn't destroy the weak trees. It revealed them." Life works exactly the same way. Pressure reveals. Distance reveals. Silence reveals. Time reveals. That is why emotionally mature people are never afraid of truth. Only illusions require constant maintenance. One of the greatest illusions modern men believe is that they are responsible for keeping every relationship alive. So they initiate every conversation. They apologize first. They organize every meeting. They check in constantly. They become the emotional engine behind every connection. Then one day, they stop, and they are shocked by what happens. Nothing. No messages. No calls. No effort from the other side. At first, that realization hurts. It feels like rejection. But after enough reflection, something changes. You realize you weren't maintaining a relationship. You were maintaining an illusion. There is an enormous difference. Healthy relationships breathe on their own. Unhealthy ones require one exhausted person to keep pumping air into them. The silent strategist learns when to stop resuscitating connections that died long ago. That lesson alone can save years of emotional exhaustion. Think about a campfire. If only one person keeps adding wood, eventually that person will run out of energy. If nobody else contributes, the fire goes out, not because anyone destroyed it, because one person was never meant to carry it alone. Relationships work the same way. Mutual effort creates warmth. One-sided effort creates burnout. Many men confuse persistence with loyalty, but they are not the same. Loyalty is shared. Persistence can become self-neglect. There comes a moment when continuing to chase someone says less about your love and more about your fear of letting go. The silent strategist recognizes that moment. And instead of running after what keeps walking away, He turns around and walks toward his own future. That decision changes everything. Because every hour you stop investing in the wrong people becomes an hour available for the right mission. For your health, your business, your family, your discipline, your peace. This is where most people finally understand the true meaning of disappearing. It was never about making someone miss you. It was about discovering who still walks beside you when you stop carrying everyone else. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, I often say that attention is your most valuable currency. Most men spend it like loose change. A little here, a little there, trying to buy appreciation from people who are never interested in giving it. The Silent Strategist spends attention differently. He invests it where it multiplies. His purpose, his discipline, his body, his mind, his future. That is why he becomes stronger while others become exhausted. Not because life is easier for him, because his attention is no longer leaking in every direction. If you're ready to stop wasting your attention and start investing it where it creates real strength, you'll find the complete framework waiting for you in the first pinned comment. Because once you master your attention, you begin mastering your life. And in the final part, you'll discover the greatest surprise of the entire 30-day experiment. It isn't that people change. It's that by the time you return, you no longer need them to. By the time the 30 days come to an end, you expect to see a different world. Instead, you discover a different man. At first, that realization feels almost disappointing. You thought everyone else would change. You imagined dramatic messages, unexpected apologies, people suddenly recognizing your value. And perhaps a few of those things do happen. Some people reach out. Some wonder where you went. Some begin treating you differently. But those changes are not the greatest reward. The greatest reward is that for the first time in a very long time, you no longer depend on them. That is freedom. Imagine spending years carrying a heavy backpack without ever taking it off. After enough time, the weight begins to feel normal. You stop noticing it. Then one day, someone removes it from your shoulders. For a few moments, you almost lose your balance. Not because you're weaker, because you've forgotten what lightness feels like. Many men experience exactly that after stepping away from constant validation. They suddenly realize how much emotional weight they had been carrying every single day. The need to impress, the fear of disappointing others, the pressure to always be available, the habit of checking who noticed them, the endless comparison. One by one, those burdens begin to disappear, and something remarkable takes their place. Peace, not excitement, not ego, peace. The Silent Strategist is not searching for a life filled with attention. He is searching for a life filled with intention. There's an enormous difference. Attention depends on other people. Intention depends on you. One can be taken away overnight. The other becomes stronger with every decision you make. Years ago, an old sailor was asked how he remained calm during violent storms. He smiled and pointed toward the horizon. He said, "A man who keeps staring at the waves will panic. A man who keeps staring at his destination will survive." That wisdom applies far beyond the ocean. Most people spend their lives watching the waves. Who liked their post? Who ignored their message? Who approved? Who criticized? Who stayed? Who left? The Silent Strategist keeps his eyes somewhere else. His mission, his discipline, his character, his future. The waves never stop, but they no longer determine his direction. Imagine an archer preparing to release an arrow. Before letting go, everything becomes still. His breathing slows. His attention narrows. His hands remain steady. He is not thinking about the crowd behind him. He is not wondering whether everyone approves of his technique. His focus is entirely on the target. That is what emotional discipline looks like. Not the absence of distraction, but the refusal to follow it. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside these 30 days. The world has trained you to react. React to notifications. React to criticism. React to praise. React to expectations. React to fear. React to loneliness. But powerful men are not defined by their reactions. They are defined by their decisions. The moment you stop reacting automatically, you begin living intentionally. That is where real confidence is born. not from becoming admired, from becoming aligned. There is one final truth I want to leave you with. Never disappear to make someone chase you. Disappear to remember who you were before you started chasing everyone else. Disappear long enough to hear your own thoughts, to rebuild your discipline, to strengthen your body, to sharpen your mind, to reconnect with your purpose. Because if those 30 days only change the way other people see you, you have missed the point. But if those 30 days change the way you see yourself, they may transform the rest of your life. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, this is exactly what we build. Not tricks, not manipulation, not games. We build a man whose confidence no longer depends on attention. A man whose peace cannot be negotiated. A man whose purpose is greater than his need to be accepted. If you're ready to become that man, the complete system is waiting for you in the first pinned comment. And remember this, when you stop chasing validation, you begin attracting respect. When you stop explaining yourself, you begin protecting your peace. When you stop making yourself constantly available, you finally discover who values your presence and who only valued your convenience. Disappear for 30 days if you must, not to escape the world, but to return as someone the world can no longer manipulate. Because the strongest man in the room is rarely the loudest. He is the one who no longer needs the room to tell him who he is. That is the path of the silent strategist. And that is where real power begins.